tool, and you are going to slowly paint inside. And if I actually do Apple H and hide this, you see what's going on. Okay, the selection tool is saying, you know what, I'm only going to let you paint inside this selection. The mask says, you know what, I'm only going to let you remove a certain amount. So you're going in and you're just masking. So now this becomes a nice highlight, and you can go into your heart's content and you can make this very small and put in pinpoint highlights all the way along here and give yourself a real hardcore edge if you wish. Actually beef up the flow all the way along. It's really up to you, and you'll see as I go through here it gets it's kind of, I don't want that, so I'm just gonna delete that. But you see what I'm getting at, right? And actually, because this highlight line runs right across this knob which is popping up, you probably want to include the knob. So I'm actually gonna unhide that, and I'm gonna deselect this, and I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna just go pop like so, because this is gonna rise above and be included in that that highlight. And you see also right here you've got a nice shadow going on. You're probably going to want to take that shadow out because of course the light source is not coming from the bottom, the light source is coming from the top, so the shadow should be moved down there as well. Anyway, so now we got this gorgeous guitar, and it makes me want to buy one. I've got an old guitar and she's pretty beat up, and I'd love to put my hands on a Washburn. Anyway, so this is pretty sweet looking guitar. So now what we got to do is we have to make some reflections on this beautiful guitar. So we are going to actually shift and select all of this stuff, so both of the adjustment layers and the guitar, and we are going to Apple G, group it. Now why am I grouping it? Well, it keeps things organized, and I'm actually going to shift and select the background layer and the light layer, and I'm going to group that as well. And I'm going to name this group, we'll say BK for background, and we're going to label this group, if I can spell, guitar. Cool. Right, so now everything is just a bit more organized, and I can turn the layers on and off, and you can see it's looking pretty cool. So now what we have to do is we are going to duplicate this guitar layer. Gonna go here, this little guy here, way over in the corner, it's hidden. This is kind of like your drop down flyout options menu. Okay, so you're gonna go down here, you're gonna go say duplicate group. You can say, oh, do you want to make a copy? Sure, let's make a copy. Okay, now I don't really want to. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be flipping this whole copy and putting it down here, but I don't want to do the whole thing. I don't want to have all these layers, right? I don't need all these layers, so I'm actually gonna go Apple E, and I'm going to merge everything, and that just takes all these layers and smokes everything down into one layer. Okay, and it's going to take on the actual name of the group itself. So it's called guitar copy. What I can do actually is I can actually take this and now drag this down, and be careful not to drag it in between any of these, because then the adjustment layers will be applied to the guitar copy instead of the Oscar guitar. So I'm going to drag it inside this folder and below the guitar itself. Okay, so what we're going to do is then Apple T. Okay, we have the guitar copy selected, and you can, I'm holding down the control button, which gives you some nice features, and you can either flip horizontal, right, gives you a mirror image. You can flip vertical, which is what I want, and I'm just going to drag this down like so, pow, like that. Okay, so the weird thing is that of course you miss most of your stuff, so I'm going to zoom out, and then I see all my stuff. I'm actually going to, now it's really up to you how you want. The more you bring this in, the more of a low angle you're going to give the appearance that it's going to make it look like the camera has been placed at a very low angle when it took the shot, so you can get you're going to see more of this reflection. Really up to you. Well, I'm just using it right now just to show you that, you know, it's possible. And if I mash down on my fingers, so it's Apple Option Shift, you see that I can grab, you know, the edge of this and distort it and give a really whacked out sense of perspective. Don't really do much of this. I think it's overused and done a bit too much. And subtlety when you're doing this stuff is the key. Don't overdo it. Just keep her simple. So yeah, sure, let's do that. Okay, so we're going to do that. So we're going to keep this at 100%. I'm going to go over to my layer mask again. I'm going to make a layer mask. Okay. And I am going to, you can do this a couple different ways. I'm going to make my brush much larger. You can actually go to the gradient tool and you can do a gradient mask on it if you wish. And you can gradient each way. Okay. Totally up to you. What I prefer to do myself is I just like to use the brush. I'm more comfortable with it. It really depends, and I want to make sure that my black is set, not my white. Black erases, white adds. So I'm going to go in, and this is at 100%, just so you know, and I'm going to just kind of, you know, slowly brush this out. You see, that's really all you need. You can bring it up, and what I would do if you want to bring it up is that maybe bring the opacity down a bit, and of course go to white because white brings it back, and then just slowly bring it up like that, and there you go. There's your reflection. Now on reflection, you also want to add a little bit of highlight or shadow right where the actual you know, object touches the ground, so that's fine. We can actually just do a little we can make it a little highlight or a shadow. It really depends on what's going on. So what we're going to do actually is make just a layer itself. Okay, we're going to put it above the reflection and below the guitar layer, and usually I just like to go in with the paintbrush. There's several different ways to do this. This is my way, and I'm just going to quickly just do a little, actually let's bring this up, let's bring it at 100%, and I'm just going to kind of, you know, do that. Okay, now I'm actually going to move this out of the way so you can see. That's all it is. Now I'm going to go to the filter, okay, and I'm going to blur this, motion blur. Why motion blur? Because with motion blur you can control it skews the pixels. It blurs it back and forth or at an angle, up and down, however you wish. Really nice to get super fast, super fine blurs, and you can blur this all to heck. It's also nice for creating a hotspot. For example, this light is shining down. You may want to create a hotter gloss, so I go okay. I'm going to bring this over, put this underneath, and you may find that it just may not work for you. So what you may also want to do is going to Apple J, I'm going to duplicate that. But instead, I'm going to turn this into black. Now I can actually invert this. I'm going to hit Apple I and invert that. I'm going to turn that off. So now it just turns it into gray instead. So now we've got a shadow. And what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to bring this in, and I am going to take this guitar layer, and this is where kind of you have to fine tune it and get her in there just so. Usually I don't like to have such a tight reflection. And maybe possibly I'm going to bring up that actual highlight as well, and I'm going to take that highlight and I'm going to scoosh it down. Now I'm just scaling this stuff back and forth with the free transform tool, and maybe I'm going to bring it in like so, like that, and we're going to maybe pop this up, and you see this is just small little blurified things, and it really depends on you know, how you want this to behave, how you want this to act, etc., etc. And probably, I think really what's missing here, I'm actually going to turn this layer off, is that I believe I need, just want to make sure here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to darken that right across there like so. Darken that right up, and then I'm going to go in here, there we go, just darken that just a wee bit. And this is where the fine-tuning comes in. Now you see I'm using the layer masks of the adjustment layers. If this was applied to the actual guitar layer itself, there's no way. I would really have to be